All right, thanks for making the time to join us today. We're going to be covering the CWA setup tool. This is a purpose-built tool CloudJumper uses to automate the deployment of cloud workspace environments into Azure. It's built on the Azure APIs and builds from scratch an entire new environment. The thing we're going to cover today is building out the platform. So it's going to cover how to do Active Directory. We're going to be building out the RDS gateways, the HTML5 gateways, all the networking layers and storage and all the environment, the casing that you're going to put your cloud workspace environments into. We're going to cover that on our next call. So this one is all about building that software-defined data center. So the first thing you're going to do is go to cwasetup.cloudworkspace.com and log in using your Azure account. You can either use a CSP account that has delegated admin permissions into the target tenant environment, because we're going to be deploying this into your customer's tenant, and then we're going to delegate those admins out to your CSP. Or if your CSP doesn't have the right credentials yet, or you haven't figured that part out, we can just use a local admin account that's in that, I'm sorry, not a local admin, an Azure AD admin account that is in that tenant. In either case, the account we're going to use needs to have global admin role, and it also needs to have ownership rights to the subscription. So if you have those two things, we should be able to deploy using the automation into the environment. If you don't know or you don't have those yet, you're going to want to jump into Azure and check the role in the Azure Active Directory area for your user, or the role that you've been assigned in the subscription to make sure that you're an owner. So assuming those prerequisites are out of the way, we're going to jump into the environment. So you log in with your Azure Active Directory credentials. In my case, I'm logging in as a CSP, but you could also do it just as just with a username in that environment. I'm going to pick my customer. In this case, Training West 1. And it's going to walk me through a wizard where I'm going to make those decisions. The first thing I'm going to choose is my location. We can pick from any Azure region. This is built by APIs, so as things are added, they're going to show up on this list. I'm on East 2, that's great. There's a variety of reasons why you'd use different ones. Primarily, putting them close to the majority of the users is the thing to decide on. Next, there's a few accounts that we need this automation to build when it's building the environment. The first is a local VM admin. So this is going to be a local environment. This is going to be a local VM admin account that runs on every single machine. It's not an Active Directory admin, so that in case we need to get in there for some reason outside of Active Directory, we've got that failsafe. We also define the to and from email addresses for success and failure reports. You don't need to bring your own SMTP configuration. This environment, or this wizard, includes SendGrid account to do it for you, but if you want, you can. Finally, you're going to set up level 3 technicians. These are domain level admin accounts, likely for all of your top tier technicians. You're not going to need these on a day-to-day basis because the CWMS tool provides local admin access and passwords and applications and things like that. But it is good to have your top tier folks giving direct domain level admin accounts into the environment. So you can set those up here. You can also set them up later after the fact. Then we're going to look at the domains. If you recall, we logged in using my CSP account, and then I selected the Train West 1 customer, which is their directory. That means that we already know and can configure their Azure Active Directory using domain services out of the gate. Domain services is going to run as a domain controller as a service effectively. And so you'll run up a service. There's not going to be a VM that does your domain controller. It's all done through this service. Our automation will configure it automatically. There's nothing else you need to do. Or if you want, you can have this automation build you 1 or 2 domain controllers, just like you would do on-premise. If that's the case, you're just going to put in whatever Active Directory domain name you'd like, obviously a non-routable one, just like you do on-prem. I'm going to leave it as Azure for now and continue. All of the communication in and out of the environment is also encrypted with SSL. We provide generic URL with a subdomain for each of our customers and gateways and so on. I think it's cloudworkspace.app is the top level domain. If you select automatic using Let's Encrypt, we rotate that certificate every 90 days and therefore applying best practices. Or if you want, you can use your own domain, upload your own wildcard cert, and manage it yourself. Most people don't because it's a lot easier just to have it handled automatically. If you've talked about the environment with us before, you'll know that there are two kind of fundamental ways you can deploy a platform. This is all the roles that it takes to deliver the service securely and appropriately to the Cloud Workspace environment. Things like an HTML5 portal, an RDS gateway, the domain controllers, our management software, all the stuff that gets wrapped around the tenant's environment, we call the platform. Those roles can all be put on a single VM. If you hit this radio button, you can even turn FTP on, and so all these things will end up on that one virtual machine. Obviously that saves cost because you're not hosting a bunch of different machines, but you lose a little bit of scalability. If you're under about 50 users, I'm going to say always use the single virtual machine unless you've got some really unique reasons why you're willing to pay a lot more for a bunch of VMs. Between 50 and 100, it's worth a discussion to figure out what you're going to be doing in that environment. And above about 100, we generally would recommend that you switch to the multiple virtual machines so that the gateways have their own dedicated environments or dedicated VMs to handle that traffic. You can choose to turn on and off the FTP service. In a multiple virtual machines environment, FTP is also going to get its own virtual machine here. And when you're in a multiple virtual machines platform, you can choose between 1 and 2 remote desktop and HTML5 gateways. You can do more later as you grow. We recommend you add these at about every 250 to 300 users. You'll choose the operating system, the time zone. Let's get back to where I was. And then you'll continue. Next, you're going to put in a SPLA number, your service provider licensing agreement, so that you can license RDS. RDS is the license that gives your users the right to connect and have a user session on these machines. If you give us a real SPLA number, CWMS will activate and allow you to report on this licensing. If you give a fake one like I have here, Windows will give you 2 or 3 months of a free trial until you're able to get that number updated. That'll give you time to go talk to a distributor about getting a SPLA number. It's important that if you give it a fake number, that you write down and set yourself a reminder to go fix it, because what's going to happen is you'll get warnings when you're logged in as an administrator, but if you don't log in as an administrator, it's just going to stop, and then your users won't be able to connect, and you'll have to fight the fire pretty quickly to figure it out. Another feature we have built in here is if you're licensing Office using SPLA, you can put in your Mac, your MAK keys, and CWMS will automatically validate and activate these titles as well. Almost all Office licensing is now going through Office 365, so this is a pretty infrequently used setting, but it is available to you if you've got a specific reason why you're using SPLA for Office. Our service also includes ThinPrint, so we've OEM'd and licensed ThinPrint and included in our software. You can check it to turn it off if you have a specific reason why you don't need it, but it makes printing a lot easier. Your end users will thank you if you're using it or something similar. Check the box and it's automatically configured and deployed for you. And those are the decisions. So we're going to look through, confirm that we've done all the things we want. This button usually will say validate, but in this case I've already validated this environment in a previous demo. So you click validate and it's going to run through a couple quick tests to make sure that this environment is ready to go. After a minute or two, it's going to come back and say everything's validated, and then you'll see the provision button that I see here. Clicking this provision button is going to run, it's about 120 different automated API-driven tasks in Azure to build the whole environment. One of the things I like to point out is that we are not copying the template of some other environment that we pre-built. This is truly from the ground up building an environment from scratch, so we're not inheriting any security artifacts or other issues that you can get when you're copying and pasting environments between tenants. As it deploys, you're going to see all those things. One second here. I'll show you what the one that's deployed looks like. So the status field is going to fill up with a bunch of different things that happen. And so here you can see, a list of examples of things. It's installing SQL and downloading automation services and doing all the things you would do manually if you were going to build this environment. But instead of it taking 2 hours or 2 days of labor, it takes about 2 hours of automation. So you click the provision button, go grab a lunch, go do work on something else, come back in a couple hours, and your environment is ready to go for the next step, which is going to be configuring and deploying the tenant in this SDDC using CWMS. That'll be our next session. Thanks for taking the time today. We're going to turn off the recording and start answering some questions, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.